This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. While MeUndies can't totally help your love life this Valentine's Day, they can offer you insanely comfy undies and loungewear to buy or gift. MeUndies has so many awesome Valentine's Day prints and styles. Plus, you can match with your partner, friends, or even your pets. This Valentine's Day, give the gift that'll keep them thinking of you and score huge site-wide savings at MeUndies.com/Spotify. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify. MeUndies. Comfort from the outside in.
Which Manning brother will win the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3 on Super Bowl Sunday? Peyton or Eli? Watch the showdown live on Super Bowl Sunday. Plus, new customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins. Only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus vest that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, and be sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. I also want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey, and Bristol, Pennsylvania, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive hands-on career training for more than 50 years. Featuring programs such as HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. Well, it's Super Bowl week, and NJ Advanced Media has you covered from all aspects of the game, where we now have Brookover, Cayden, Steele, and Ryan Novozinsky here to help us break down this game. And we'll have a couple of podcasts we'll be doing this week in order to give you that information. So, guys, how are you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you? A new addition to the promo. Nicely done.
Yeah, we're glad to have our friends over at Penco Tech joining us, so we're definitely looking forward to that. Cayden, Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, we're on day 2, and I probably gained 30 pounds. I don't know. Don't know how it's going to be at the end of the week, but the city's amazing, man. And a lot going on down here. I feel like the entire league feels like it's here. So lots of fun stuff.
Yeah. With Ryan, it's been a fun week so far. Excited to do this pod and talk about, the game coming up. So.
All right, cool. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with our opening drive question, and we're looking right now. We all know that the Super Bowl has become an international experience now. You're seeing so many celebrities. You've got the increased attention with the Chiefs looking to become the first team ever to win 3 straight Super Bowls as well, too. And a lot of pressure and eyes are going to be on the Eagles heading into this game. So first, I'll start with you, Bob. How do you think the Eagles are handling the increased spotlight, and what are your biggest takeaways from opening night?
I think they're handling just fine. I mean, nothing like having experience. Not all of these guys, because there are a lot of younger guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Saquon is new to it, so their guys are new to it. But they were here 2 years ago, so they know what they know what to expect. A good many of them, and the ones who didn't know what to expect, they could at least lean on the guys who did experience it 2 years ago. Hey, what should I expect? I've felt this way for a long time now, that this team is singularly focused on the job at hand, and I don't think any amount of tomfoolery that we always see on opening night is going to take their focus away. This team, I feel they think there's a mission to finish, and that's where their focus is right now.
And Kate, what do you think? Where do you see this team right now for in terms of the pressure and how they're handling it?
Yeah, I think they're handling it well. Probably helps that they were in this position 2 years ago as well. So they've been through all these different things. The media night already, they have a big core of their roster is still on this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I think they've been handling it well. They seem to be focused on football. I don't get the sense that they're very distracted. And this is a group that's motivated. I know they've tried to downplay a little bit, but 2 years ago, I mean, they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And you got to think, this is an opportunity for them to kind of make up for what happened a few years ago. So I don't get any sense that they're distracted or overwhelmed or anything like that.
Ryan, I know you've covered the Giants before. You've seen all this stuff, and it's the different user. When in terms of looking at the way the Eagles are handling this, what have you noticed so far?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, what I will say is that I think that what's impressed me a lot with this Eagles team, this is not a shot at the Giants. It's just the Giants are a really young team, and that's the team that I cover, so I'm around them a lot more. But it's really impressive how much of a good head on their shoulders this Eagles team's had, and I mean that in terms of, I mean, there any question that's I don't know if salacious is the right term, but any question that's clearly like prodding or whatever, they kind of just like flick it off, right? Jalen Hurts is really good about that. I mean, geez, I heard some of the dumbest questions possible asked to him yesterday. Someone asked him how he got so handsome, and he barely bats an eye. He almost like answers it properly. Saquon, same deal. It's like, I asked Saquon yesterday for a story that our colleague Daryl's doing, and he's just, it's super that the humility is palpable. So I think the Eagles will be fine, and I think the Chiefs are obviously they're used to it now by this point too. So I think both teams are kind of in a mature spot.
And I loved how he brought up the whole fact that is talking about the DNA part of what makes them so handsome, whatever. I kind of thought that happened a little bit, in biology class, but I digress. Let's go into a little bit more hard news in terms of what we've learned so far heading into this week. On Monday, it came out that defensive end Josh Sweat has changed agents from Clutch Sports to Drew Rosenhaus and Ryan Matha. Bob, do you think this change will result in the deal finally getting done between the two sides?
I don't know. He's a fascinating. You wrote the thing yesterday that he changed agents, obviously, and I ended up right out. I didn't even know when I went out on the floor because it happened kind of as we were going out the floor for media night or opening night. It kind of happened at the same time. He's just such an interesting case. He's such a. I wrote about what an underrated player he was today, and Lane Johnson basically said he thought he was the most underrated player on the defense. He's second on the team in pressures, led the team in sacks, terrific run stopper. They obviously didn't want to pay him. They made him take a pay cut. They paid Bryce Huff, got nothing out of him. They couldn't get to reach a deal with Hassan Reddick. Didn't seem like they were really interested. Josh Sweat ended up coming out the best of all of these guys because now he's in a Super Bowl and he's staring at free agency and Drew Rosenhaus working for him, chance to make a lot of money. But I don't know how the Eagles are going to feel about this. I really don't. Howie Roseman talked the other day about how he still has confidence that Bryce Huff can rebound from this. I'm not sure I agree with that. Nolan Smith has obviously come on strong. But Brandon Graham, we don't even know what's going to happen. You got a pretty, maybe not a superstar, but you got a pretty solid player who's going to be 28 years old in Josh Sweat. I would have a hard time just letting him walk away, but I'm going to be fascinated to see how this plays out, Chris. I really am.
And one thing to watch as well, too, Drew Rosenhaus does have extensive history with the Eagles in terms of negotiating deals. And all three of his clients are about to become free agents that are on the team right now. Not free agents, but Darius Slater's questions about him returning in regards to his contract. He's owed a lot of money. He's hinted that he may play another year or not. We'll have to see what happens with that. And then now you have Fred Johnson, too, where my understanding is he's going to test free agency and try to get a starting job. So Drew's going to be busy talking to Howie Roseman, and you look at the market now, Sweat is actually one of the top 5 edge rushers that's going to be available. So somebody's going to throw a lot of money his way. So the Eagles, if they really want him, they're going to have to work early and make sure these numbers come true fruition. Kate, we're going to go to you now. We're going to change gears and look at the offensive line. 2 offensive linemen are dealing with injuries that really came to fruition during the NFC Championship game against the Washington Commanders. Cam Jurgens is still dealing with a back injury, and left guard Landon Dickerson suffered a knee injury, replacing Jurgens at center. Okay, Cayden, you've heard about from Landon Dickerson. Do you think that they'll be ready to go against Chiefs All-Pro defensive tackle Chris Jones?
Yeah, I expect both of them to play. Whether they're at 100%, I think it's a pivotal thing. Chris Jones obviously is one of the best defensive tackles in football for the last 5 or 6 years. Not only that, he's a great player in the playoffs. I mean, just every single year he seemingly takes over games. It's going to be a challenge, especially if those guys are playing injured. Landon seemed in serious pain in the NFC Championship game. Cam obviously had to come in from him in a respectable effort, but if his back isn't good and is still bad, it's going to be tough to stop Chris Jones. Even at full health, a guy like that is a handful to deal with. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that is one of the bigger storylines to watch out for in this game. If anything could disrupt the Eagles' offense, and I think they'll be able to put up points against Kansas City, but if anything gets in the way, it's because those guys aren't healthy, and they're able to get after Hurts, not only with Chris Jones, but sending different guys in different blitz packages. And if Cam and Landon are banged up and they can't play to their full capabilities, it could be a struggle. So I expect those guys to go. We've seen them. We already saw Cam play through pain last week, and we've seen Landon do it throughout his career, battled different injuries here and there and just power through. So I expect him to be out there, but stopping Chris Jones is never easy, and especially if you're not healthy. So I'm not 100% confident it's going to be an easy matchup.
And one thing the Eagles will probably have to do is have the Jason Peters plan ready to go. Or remember, former Eagles tackle and guard, technically, Jason Peters used to get injured a couple games, and he'd have to miss a series or two, and the backups come in. So we'll expect Tyler Steen to be ready to play some guard just in case something does happen with one of the two of them. Now we're going to turn our attention to Saquon Barkley. And he admitted during opening night that he almost signed with the Chicago Bears. Here's some brief audio from that exchange.
We said the Bears. Oh, pretty damn close. Let's say that. Yeah. It was pretty close.
And we just heard from Barkley in that. Ryan, looking at this team, do you think the Eagles would have still made it to the Super Bowl without Barkley?
Oh, man, it's so tough to say, right? Because he's had such a tremendous year, obviously Offensive Player of the Year kind of guy. And yeah, I mean, he's such a big part. He's so much of a big part of this Eagles team that I feel like all the little graphics down here, you usually would see the quarterback on them, but you see Saquon Barkley on them, and for good reason. I don't know if they could have made the Super Bowl without him just because he's so valuable, but I think they could have gone far. But it just depends on who they would have signed instead, right? Could they have gotten a Josh Jacobs? Would they have had to have pivoted to a guy like Josh Jacobs instead? I think, behind this offensive line, which we know is really stout, really good. I think a lot of running backs can do some damage. Could they have drafted a Bucky Irving? I mean, maybe they would have, if that was more of a position need for them, they would have looked to him in the draft. But, obviously that's also kind of a stretch because he was a 4th rounder. So it's a lot of these what ifs. And thankfully for Eagles fans, they don't really have to dwell on that because he did sign with them. And he's just made for the best almost revenge story of all time against these Giants.
Nice. And now we're at our run pass option segment of the show where I'll read a statement and Bob, Cayden, or Ryan will listen to it. And if they agree with it, they'll run with it and explain why. If they disagree with it, they'll pass and then they'll also give a reason why. So here we go. Bob, Jalen Hurts will have to duplicate his Super Bowl LVII performance and account for 4 touchdowns in order for the Eagles to win this game. Are you running or are you passing?
I'm gonna pass on that. Jalen was to me even better, more so than Patrick Mahomes. He was the best player on the field in the last Super Bowl. He made one mistake. He was under some pressure from Nick Bolton. He wasn't hit, but he dropped the ball. Bolton picked it up and ran for a touchdown. The Eagles overcame that mistake because they ended up going up into halftime 10 points after that. They couldn't hold the Chiefs off, Mahomes and Chiefs off in the second half. What the Eagles need, I think, more than anything, is for their defense to show up. It was one of the best defenses in the league 2 years ago, set franchise record for sacks, was 70-something sacks. But they didn't show up that day, especially they did in the first half, but in the second half, they just had no answers for Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. This Chiefs offense isn't as good now as it was then. So more so than they need Jalen to play an efficient game, no turnovers, and Saquon run the ball. But more than anything, to me, they need the defense to come up much bigger in this game than they did 2 years ago.
Nice. And now, Cayden, will go to you on this one. Eagles defensive tackle Jalen Carter will outplay Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones and be more disruptive. Are you running or are you passing?
I'll run with it. I know we talked about Chris Jones being in these big moments before, and he's the proven guy. He's been the best defensive tackle outside of Aaron Donald, for the last 5 years. And now if Aaron Donald retired, you can make an argument, he's the king of that position. But if Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens are good enough to go to, and they're not completely hindered, I still think that, the interior of the offensive line for the Eagles is so much better than Kansas City. Trey Smith's a good player, but the Chiefs were forced to kick Joe Thuney to left tackle because that was their biggest weakness on the offensive line. And if they didn't do that, it could have really, hurt their chances of getting into the Super Bowl. So they had to make that move, which required them to move Mike Caliendo inside. And Mike Caliendo has not been very good. He's 103rd out of 135 guards, and that, is Pro Football Focus grade currently. He's got bad pass blocking grade, bad run blocking grade. I think there's going to be some opportunities because Kansas City had to choose one or the other. So they decided they'd rather have, the weaker guard than, a problem at left tackle. So they had to pick their battle, but I think the Eagles would be smart to try to isolate, Jalen Carter as much as possible and Mike Caliendo. And I think that's how they could really cause some problems for Mahomes is getting a lot of interior pressure with Carter. So I'll run with it. But Chris Jones could also have a big game. We've seen Mekhi Becton struggle in pass protection a little bit in the playoffs. So it's not one I'm feeling confident about because, I think Chris Jones could take advantage of that matchup too if they move him over on the right side on Mekhi. So it's tough, but I'll go with Jalen Carter and the way he's been playing in the playoffs, and I think he'll have another big game.
All right, cool. And now we're going to you, Ryan. This is actually your first run pass option. Here we go. Isaiah Pacheco is the biggest X factor on the Chiefs offense that the Eagles have to worry about. Are you running or are you passing?
Pass. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's just unbelievable. This is now going to be, his third straight Super Bowl, and could win his third straight Super Bowl. Obviously, he's such an electric weapon for them. And honestly, Pacheco just has not impressed me this year. He had the injuries, which is fine. You're not gonna. Everything's kind of gone perfect for him in his first 3 years in the league. Winning 2 Super Bowls already and being major contributor with that. But ever since he came back from injury, he's kind of stunk. So 12 yards last week on 5 carries. Didn't get him involved a lot, but and if they do, maybe that comes into play. But I don't know, man. I look at Mahomes and I look at Xavier Worthy obviously had a great game last week. You're looking for him to maybe do some damage again, although he didn't get traded away by the Eagles, so maybe there was a little bit of a revenge factor there last week with the old Buffalo Bills. But no, it's not Pacheco to me.
All right, cool. Next segment we're up is the 2-minute drill. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to give each of these guys 2 minutes to answer a question. If they don't finish, they'll hear this whistle, and then their time's up, and then we shame them publicly in front of everybody. If they do it, then everything's quiet, and we go on from there on out. So the question is this, and I'll start with you, Bob, on this. Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie spoke during opening night about his desire for the Eagles to host a Super Bowl and said that he and other people would be torn between having the outdoor events and the elements being a factor in the games. Do you think that the new stadium, whenever it comes, will have a dome? Your time starts now.
It should, because if you get a dome in Philadelphia, you have a chance to not just host a Super Bowl, but all kinds of other things. Philadelphia could become just a different kind of spot. You probably give away some of these World Cup games, but you can host Final Fours, political conventions. It would be the right way to go. I'm not a big fan of domes, but I do think it would be cool to have a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. Do I think we're ever going to get one? I mean, if it ever is going to happen, the time may be coming in the next 5 years or so. The Sixers Flyers things happening. The Phillies and Eagles are going to want something out of this agreement from the city, and this is going to be their chance to pounce on that. I had somebody from the Eagles organization say to me about a year or two ago, and it kind of shocked me, but it's stadium in like 2034 is going to be 30 years old, and and it'd be time to really get a new stadium. I'm like, what? It's like old stadiums used to be cathedrals. Now they're just, they build a stadium. Well, there's better stuff now. We got to have better stuff. And, there are things that the city needs a lot more than a new stadium. I was laughing at Roger Goodell. His thing on Monday was, how it could really just be a great boost for the DC to get, a stadium back at the site of RFK Stadium. Like, DC needs more things than that and better things than that to help people in that city. So I hope they have a dome someday, and a Super Bowl someday. But I'm not holding my breath.
Bravo! 4 seconds left. You did it. You got it under the gun. Good job.
I'm doing my victory dance. You can't see me, but I'm doing it. Bump, bump, bump.
You're in playoff form. That's good stuff. Cayden, you're up next. Your time starts now.
Yeah. I think they'll have. I think it would be nice for them to have a dome eventually. I get the element of the weather, and you like the cold weather games, and it's Philly, and you have to run through the NFC. And the conditions won't be easy, but when it comes to the city, I think the city does deserve a Super Bowl. I think it deserves more, and it deserves maybe, Jeffrey Lurie talked about it last night, maybe a college football championship in the future as well. There should be college football playoff games. I think it would be a smart business decision for Jeffrey Lurie, and I expect them to possibly explore that route and go down it. But we'll see what happens. It's tough. I do enjoy the outside element of it, and not every stadium or not every city, especially the ones like Buffalo and Philly and stuff like that. I don't necessarily love it in terms of that, but I think it's a smart business decision. Jeffrey Lurie is he's a smart guy, and he knows it's going to make money, and he knows it's going to bring business opportunities and all the rest of it. So I expect them to go down that path eventually.
Wow, 50 seconds. Wow. All right. You left enough time for to come back and you finished it. Sorry, you left enough time for Patrick Mahomes to try to come back and win this game. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Ryan, same thing to you. So to give a refresh to everybody, Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie spoke during opening night about his desire to have a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, and he's torn between the elements, and he doesn't know if he wants to have a dome or not. Do you think that there's going to be a dome when eventually they start the process and get a new stadium? Your time starts now.
So here's what I think. I think there's a lot of teams out there that have these dome stadiums, which is fine. Teams like the Rams, the Vikings, and we'll see them all, and they're state of the art, right? Like the Minnesota Stadium, US Bank Stadium looks amazing. I've never been, but it looks amazing. Obviously, the SoFi Stadium is unbelievable. But what is the marker of some of these teams, right? The Rams, we just saw it, right? Where it wasn't all of their players, but it was guys like Puka Nacua not having the best game once they finally get into the elements, right? The Vikings, oh my gosh, every year it seems like, they just kind of turn into a dud. And that might not be a dome thing. That might just be a, they kind of suck thing. And their franchise is a curse thing. But there's a certain stain on some of these domed that some of these teams that are in domes that, you can't really shake. And I don't think anybody views the Eagles as like, a team like the Bills or a team like, the Patriots or something like that, where they're considered to be like this extremely cold weather where they're having to play in blizzards and stuff like that, like the Steelers too. But they're definitely cold. I've been had some cold times over there in Philadelphia. This is the Giants Eagles game at the end of the year was insanely cold. So that said, I don't think the Eagles should want to lose that toughness. And if they don't want to lose that toughness, they got to say no to the dome. Now, selfishly speaking, just talking for myself, I would love it. I mean, I going there once a year, being able to, go there instead of going to, the Link, which is fine. It's a fine place. But we, as Cayden and I saw last night at the Superdome, it's just a amazing atmosphere. Oh, no, I got whistle.
You ran out of time. I am sorry. First time playing and you ran out of time on that one. Good points.
Amateurs. One's like 60 seconds short, and the other one's over. Oh, no.
I was filibustering.
Good. All good points made by everybody. It was a close time. One person went over. So shame. Sorry. If I throw something in real quick in terms of this, I have no problem with being a retractable dome if the only condition was this. You keep it open for every football game. You close it for the basketball games or whatever indoor events, concerts, what have you, depending on the thing. That's the only thing I'd probably say.
I think you should have to leave it open for political conventions.
So I get shot. Oh, yeah.
Especially if it's 118 degrees.
Oh, goodness. Anywho, let's get up. Anywho, we're here our final and our overtime question, and this time is usually it's something that's off topic or something that opens up the minds or what have you. But we're going to keep it in this one too, and ask these guys what their experience has been like in New Orleans since they've been down there. Cayden, I'm going to start with you. What have you noticed about the city? Enjoyed something that stood out during your time down there in these first couple days?
Yeah, it's still early, and obviously, I think the one thing I'm missing is the food element. I want to keep on, eventually try some good places in New Orleans. But I think the number one thing that stood out in terms of interactions and, like Sunday night, kind of going around the city to explore a little bit. It's just the people, honestly. I mean, all very nice. Obviously, it's been a tough, year for the city of New Orleans with everything that happened with the tragedy at the beginning of January, or on New Year's Eve night, and just how the people have been, the Uber drivers, from the people, at the restaurants and bars, how nice they've been and been welcoming them. I think that's, might be a simple answer, but I think that's been the biggest thing that stood out to me. Just the culture of the city and just, the fact that it's so walkable. I think it seems like a great city. I got nothing but good things to say so far, and I'm excited, when we do have some downtime to go see some more.
Cool. Bob, what have you noticed about the city?
So Sunday I got in. We got in around 4:30. Me and Cayden were on the same flight, and I had writing to do. So I came back to my room, checked in, got in my room, and did some writing. Got done around 9:30. Starving. I walked out. We're not like I didn't know really where I was going. I don't know this part of New Orleans. I know closer to the quarter and that part of, I don't know, we're in an area called the Warehouse District. So I just walked, found a place called the District, sitting there and was watching, I guess, the Milwaukee basketball game. The Bucks were playing Memphis, and started talking to this guy standing next to me. And he works at Emerald's, and his friend had come in and he gave him this container of stuff. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he's like, it's crawfish bisque. I said, I've never had crawfish. So he made the, he knew the bartender, and he made her go get like the little cups that you put the condiments in, the black little cups that
yeah.
So she brings it out and he pours some into it. And like, oh my God, it was delicious. I'd never had crawfish in my life. Delicious. I'm going to have some crawfish bisque before I leave here. So that was my one standout moment. And also last night, opening night, I'm not a big fan of opening night in the Super Bowl. And if I never cover another one, I'll be okay with that.
Okay, finally, Ryan, what about you? What have you noticed about the city?
Well, Chris, I like booze. I like food. I like staying out late, and New Orleans has a lot of that. And of course, the stories here are fun to write too. New Orleans is a fun city, man. It completely exceeded my expectations. You can walk into any restaurant, and even if it's the dumpiest looking place, and you find some of the best food you've ever eaten. So, I had a po' boy last night. It was delicious. Got that on the Uber Eats. And then I went and I actually got a king cake too, which is also really good. So, some good times already in New Orleans, and hopefully more as the week comes along.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you guys all for joining me here today on this podcast, and thank you all out there for listening to this latest episode. Once again, you'll have Bob, Cayden, and Ryan down there on the ground in New Orleans, giving you the latest updates and news from there. Myself, Andy Vasquez, our Jets writer, Daryl Slater, our Giants writer, will be providing their support in other ways as well too, about stories as well too, and many more other people part of the NJ.com sports department. Will have everything to get you ready for the Eagles and Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. So for Bob Brookover, Cade Steele, Ryan Novozinsky, I'm Chris Franklin. Everybody have a good one. See ya. The No-Huddle Show podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and Bristol, PA, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. That's PENNCOTECH.edu.